So my story begins in the summer of 2009 when I decided to move out to the mecca of all that's cool and hip and now, a place called Austin, Texas. I went out there to work an internship with this world-famous film festival because that's what Delco kids with worthless film degrees from Temple University do. They move cross-country to work for free when they're 27. But I went out there, and I have to say that the first 2 months in Austin was incredible. It was as if the jumbled pile of puzzle pieces that was my life at that point had finally come together and created something whole. But unfortunately, that internship never led to a job, and the woman who I rented a room for was engaged, and her fiance was moving in, and I had to move out with very little notice. And before I knew it, I was living out of the back of my car in a parking lot of a 24-hour Gold's Gym while working a minimum wage mailroom job at the local elections office. The job pretty much paid enough to keep me fed and get me drunk every night before work the next morning. And after about a month, I realized that it was time to come back to Philadelphia and get my shit together before I made another poor life decision and embarked on another wacky adventure. So in the winter of 2010, I made my drive back to Philadelphia. And I don't know if you remember the winter of 2010, but it was the worst in recorded history. This was the winter of the snowpocalypse. And I was going to drive cross-country right fucking in the middle of it. So like for the first few days, I was driving like a bat out of hell, trying to beat the storm and, outrace the heavier snowfalls. And every hour on the hour, my mom is calling me, urging me, begging me to pull over and get a hotel room and just hunker down while the storm passed. But she didn't realize I had about $200 to my name, and I was already terrified that that wasn't going to be enough to get me back to Philly. So things finally started to kind of turn grim when I made my way to West Virginia. And here's a little aside for you. I hate West Virginia. Fuck West Virginia. And if you're from West Virginia, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Fuck your state. I stopped to have lunch at a Waffle House. And I went to go use the bathroom, and when I came back, I was like the only one there, but someone had gone through my bag and stole my phone and a book that I was reading. It was a biography of Fatty Arbuckle, and I didn't know what I was more angry about. The fact that now I had no phone to contact someone as I was risking my life on my drive back to Philly, or the fact that someone stole a really good book that I was like 15 fucking pages from finishing. And even to this day, I wonder just how much meth does a used copy of I, Fatty by a West Virginia hillbilly. But it was when I finally got to Virginia or Maryland when things turned from grim to bad to holy fuck, I'm going to die tonight, because I finally hit the eye of the storm. And as I was driving, I just kept passing accident after accident. All of these tractor trailers, one after another, had gone off the road, and they were laying on their side in the median like dead, frozen carcasses of some great beast. It was ominous and foreboding, and those terms are still understatements, because in film or literature, this is what we call foreshadowing. This would be the part of a movie where you're screaming at the lead character, "You idiot, just stop the car!" But I refused to stop until I was forced to stop. Finally, about 15 cars ahead of me, a trailer once again had gone off the road. Its carriage was in the median, but its load, the trailer, was spread across the 3 lanes of the highway. There was no way around it. I was stuck. I was 30 miles from any exit in either direction, and the snow was getting heavier and heavier and heavier. I had no water, I had no food. I just came back from Texas where there are no winters, so I had no winter clothing. And I knew I was going to be stuck there not just for a couple hours, but possibly a couple days. I was fucked. And then I looked at the dashboard of my car and I saw that I had less than a quarter tank of gas. I couldn't even keep my car running to keep the heat on. I'm rummaging through my luggage, making a makeshift quilt out of like used t-shirts, trying to make myself warm, but it didn't really do very much. I fall asleep, and it's the deepest sleep I ever slept. And I woke up thinking, man, that must have been some hours. It must be morning. The sun's going to come up. The snow is going to melt, and I'm going to be okay. And then I looked at my watch, and I had slept for 12 minutes. And that's when a panic attack hit. I was freaking out. I was cold. It was the type of cold that you feel in your bones. But then I remembered my roommate in Austin. She was a stoner pothead hippie. And when I left the apartment, she gave me a little box and bestowed upon me the type of bullshit sage wisdom that hippie stoner potheads like to bestow. She said, "Greg, take this box because I know you're going to need it. You might not know when, but on your journey, you're going to need this. Inside that box was about 6 or 7 hand-rolled joints, and at this point I thought she was right, and this is the time, and I need this. So I put out a joint, I light it up, trying to stop my panic attack. I take this big drag, and the moment the smoke hits my lungs, I realize I made the worst fucking decision of my life. This was super heady sativa, and I was about to have the most paranoid, self-effacing high of my life. My panic attack turns into a full-blown nervous breakdown. I'm questioning every decision I've ever made, every person who's ever hurt me, everyone I've ever hurt, every relationship gone bad, every bad decision that led me to being stuck in this goddamn car. And then I have that other type of paranoia that if any of you have ever been stupid high and felt, I wonder if I might have shit myself. Now, I've smoked a lot and I've never shit myself, but I'm convinced that I have to get out of this car. So I'm struggling to get the door open. The snow's now up to my car handle, and I'm trudging out into the white void of the white night until I'm far enough where no one can see me. And I realize I didn't shit myself, but I'm screaming to the sky, howling at the moon, and speaking in tongues until I settle down into a silent whimper when I hear someone calling out to me. I turn around and there's this hillbilly in a tuxedo, half tucked in, half tucked out, joint in one hand, cigarette in another, and he says, "You all right?" And I'm honest, and I say no. I give him the Cliff Notes version of my story, and he says, "Well, son, I think you need to follow me and warm up." He takes me back to his bus and invites me in, and I'm immediately hit by that warmth, not just of the bus, but of all the people inside the bus. It was a shit-faced wedding party of rednecks, groomsmen, bridesmen, total cliche. They're passing me jars of moonshine and skunk-ass hillbilly beer, Natty Ice, Milwaukee Beast, and at this point my memory's pretty hazy, but I pass out. And I wake up the next day and the sunlight's pulling in through the windows of the bus. There's this bridesmaid laying next to me, and I think she may or may not have given me a hand job the night before, and she says, "Greg, the bus is moving. You need to get back to your car." I stand up, jackhammer in my skull. I stumble out, make my way up to the vehicle. I'm now the jerk who's causing the traffic as everyone's trying to drive around my driverless vehicle. But I get in, and I make it to the next gas station. I refuel, and somehow I made it back to Philly. I've traveled the world. I have a lot of funny stories, probably funnier stories, more interesting stories. But this is something that has just stuck with me ever since. Thank you.